At my family's barbecue, they treated my daughter like she was less than everyone else. They made her serve food, laughed at her clothes, and acted like she should be grateful just to be there. I stood there watching, heart pounding, forcing a smile while my daughter tried so hard not to cry. I knew I needed to stay calm for her sake, but inside I was ready to explode. Then, right when I thought the night couldn't get any worse, a black SUV pulled up. A woman I had never seen before stepped out, walked straight toward my daughter, and knelt down in front of her. She looked Alara right in the eyes and said, "Princess, are you ready for your surprise?" The entire backyard froze. Forks stopped mid-air, jaws literally hung open, and in that single moment, everything changed. When we pulled up to my sister Jenna's house that afternoon, I already had a knot forming in my stomach. I told myself it was just nerves. Maybe this time things would be different. Maybe Jenna and Mom would actually be kind. Maybe today would be about family and laughter, not quiet humiliation disguised as jokes. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel for a second before turning to look at my daughter sitting beside me. Alara smoothed the front of her dress, a simple yellow sundress she had saved up for by babysitting the neighbor's twins. She'd fallen in love with it the moment she saw it online. It wasn't flashy or expensive, but it was her style. Software, pretty, modest. She looked beautiful. Her dark hair was tucked behind her ears, and she wore a small silver bracelet she had gotten from her school's craft fair. She was nervous, I could tell, but she still smiled up at me with those big, hopeful eyes. "Just be yourself, sweetie," I said, reaching over to squeeze her hand. "You're perfect the way you are." Alara nodded and tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Thanks, Mom." We got out of the car and were immediately hit by the smell of grilled burgers and hot dogs. Laughter floated through the air. Kids darted across the neatly trimmed lawn. Adults leaned back in plastic chairs holding paper plates piled high with food. It looked like the kind of family gathering you see on TV commercials. Happy, carefree. But I knew better. I could already spot the tight smiles, the sidelong glances. This wasn't about catching up and having fun. This was about sizing each other up, picking apart whoever seemed the weakest. Jenna spotted us from across the yard and waved. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek ponytail, her designer sunglasses pushed up on her head. She wore a crisp white dress that probably cost more than my entire paycheck. She sauntered over, drink in hand, flashing that practice smile she saved for when she wanted something. "There you are," Jenna said, pulling me into a stiff, one-armed hug before turning her attention to Alara. Her smile faltered for just a second, almost too quick to notice. But I noticed. "Wow, you're getting so big," Jenna said, the edge in her voice slicing right through the compliment. "Hey, listen, could you do me a huge favor and help pass out some drinks? The kids are being lazy." Before Alara could answer, Jenna was already pressing a tray of soda cans into her hands. She turned and walked off, calling back over her shoulder, "Be a dear, okay?" Alara stood there frozen for a second, tray wobbling slightly. She looked up at me, and I saw the question in her eyes. Should I say no? Should I fight back? I gave her a tight smile and a small nod. We would pick our battles. Right now, we needed to survive the afternoon. I watched my daughter weave through the crowd, cheeks flushing as she tried to balance the tray and smile politely at people who barely looked at her. I felt a burn rise in my chest, a familiar mixture of anger and helplessness. I had told myself we needed to come, to show up, to be part of the family, but I hated seeing her treated like this, like she was a guest who should be grateful for crumbs. I made my way over to a picnic table where my mother, Diane, sat fanning herself with a paper plate. She barely looked up when I sat down. "Late, as usual," she said, folding the plate neatly in half. "Traffic," I said, even though there hadn't been any. My Uncle Rick sat beside her, sunglasses hiding whatever judgment his eyes might have shown. He gave me a nod but said nothing. Typical. I kept glancing at Alara, willing her to come back so she wouldn't have to endure it too long. Just as she was handing a soda to one of my cousins, Jenna's voice rang out again, louder this time, drawing the attention of several people nearby. "Oh, did you knit that dress yourself, sweetheart?" Jenna laughed, her voice dripping with mockery. I saw the way a few others snickered. I saw the way Alara's shoulders stiffened. She didn't say anything. She just kept her head down and moved to the next person. I stood up halfway out of my seat, ready to go to her, but my mother put a hand on my arm. "She needs to toughen up a little," Mom said under her breath, as if that made it better. I jerked my arm away and crossed the yard toward Alara. She didn't look at me, but I could see it in the tightness of her mouth, the way she blinked too fast. She was fighting not to cry. I should have turned around right then and there. I should have grabbed her hand and walked out. But before I could make a move, the deep growl of an engine cut through the chatter. Heads turned toward the driveway as a sleek black SUV pulled up. It was out of place here, among the scratched minivans and battered pickup trucks. The vehicle came to a smooth stop, and the driver's door swung open. Out stepped a woman none of us recognized. She was tall, elegant, dressed sharply without looking like she was trying too hard. She looked around the yard, her gaze steady, until it landed on Alara. And without hesitation, she started walking straight toward my daughter. The woman from the SUV hadn't spoken a word yet, but everything about her drew the attention of the entire backyard. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. My sister paused halfway through sipping her wine. Even my mother raised her eyebrows and straightened in her seat. But the woman didn't glance at any of them. She had eyes only for Alara. She crossed the yard with calm, confident steps, her heels clicking softly on the stone path. I saw Alara hesitate, still holding the half-empty drink tray Jenna had given her. Her eyes darted toward me, unsure. She didn't recognize the woman, neither did I. Then, just before the woman reached her, Jenna cut across the yard with the fake sweetness she always reserved for strangers. "Hi there," Jenna said with a sharp smile. "Can I help you with something?" The woman barely looked at her. She gave the faintest polite smile and stepped around her like she wasn't even there. Jenna's smile froze for a split second, then she turned and followed, clearly trying to figure out what was going on. The woman stopped in front of Alara, crouched slightly, and looked her right in the eyes. I could feel every muscle in my body tense. My daughter didn't know how to react. The tray in her hands wobbled again. The woman smiled gently and said, "Princess, are you ready for your surprise?" Alara blinked. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She looked at me, completely lost. That was the moment the entire yard went silent. People stopped chewing. Someone dropped a fork. Every eye was locked on the stranger kneeling in front of my daughter, calling her princess, like she was someone special, someone important. I walked over slowly, every instinct in me on high alert, trying to piece together what was happening. I reached Alara just as the woman stood again. She extended a hand to me. "Miss Callie Morgan?" she asked. "My name is Amelia Blackwell. I've been trying to reach you through your daughter's school, but they weren't sure if you'd be attending today's gathering." Amelia Blackwell. That name didn't mean anything to me at first, but her tone, her presence, the way people were watching her like she had just stepped out of a movie, it all made my heart race. "I'm sorry," I said cautiously. "What's this about?" Amelia smiled again, but this time with more excitement. She turned back to Alara. "You submitted a portfolio of fashion sketches to your school counselor a few months ago. She sent them in as part of a statewide youth arts initiative. We reviewed over 300 submissions. Alara's work stood out immediately." Alara's mouth dropped open. "She's been selected for the Blackwell Rising Creators Program," Amelia continued. "It's a mentorship program in partnership with a top-tier arts academy. Full summer scholarship, travel included, with some of the best fashion designers in the country." For a moment, no one said a word, not even Jenna. Alara stared up at her, stunned. "My drawings?" "Yes," Amelia said warmly. "You have a gift, Alara, and we'd be honored to help you develop it." Jenna recovered first, stepping forward with a laugh that didn't sound natural. "Wait, I thought this was some kind of joke. I mean, Alara, she draws little cartoons." I turned to her sharply. "They're not cartoons, they're fashion illustrations." Jenna shrugged. "Whatever, I'm just saying she's a kid. She's never even taken real classes." Amelia's smile turned cool. "That's the point. Talent like this doesn't always wait for formal training. It grows in quiet places." Jenna's mouth opened again, but she didn't have a comeback. My mother stayed seated at the picnic table, arms folded, eyes narrowed. Uncle Rick muttered, "Didn't see that coming." I looked at Alara, who was still frozen in place, eyes wide. Her face was flushed, but this time it wasn't from embarrassment. It was from something new, recognition, hope, maybe even pride. I stepped behind her and put a hand on her shoulder. "You did this," we whispered. "You earned it." Amelia reached into her bag and handed Alara a crisp white envelope. Inside was the official invitation, a schedule, a letter from the director of the academy, and a handwritten note from the judge who had reviewed her portfolio. The words "natural visionary" stood out in bold letters. Alara looked up at Amelia. "I really get to go?" Amelia nodded. "If you say yes, the car is here to take you to the welcome dinner tonight. We'll handle everything else." I turned to Alara and gave her the one thing she needed in that moment, a yes. She turned back to Amelia, heart pounding, voice trembling. "I want to go." Applause broke out awkwardly around the yard, some of it genuine, some of it forced. Jenna clapped slowly, clearly fuming but too stunned to do much else. My mother didn't move, but I didn't care. My daughter was being seen, truly seen for who she was, by someone who mattered. That was the moment the tide shifted, and we weren't finished yet. Alara stood clutching the envelope like it might disappear if she blinked. The words on the page felt unreal to her, like a dream she hadn't dared to speak out loud. I could see it in her eyes. She was trying to convince herself this was really happening, that someone had actually seen her, not as a burden or an obligation, but as an artist. I wanted to give her that moment to let her breathe it in, but I could already feel the shift around us. The smiles were fading. Whispers had started again, and Jenna, who had been unusually quiet, stepped forward. "I just think it's kind of weird to show up uninvited at a family party," she said to Amelia, folding her arms. Amelia didn't blink. "I was invited by Alara's school. They told me she would be here today." Jenna scoffed. "Well, this is a private family gathering. Maybe next time someone could call ahead." It was a desperate move. Jenna was losing control of the narrative, and she knew it. This day was supposed to be another chance for her to hold court, to remind everyone how important she was. But the spotlight had shifted, and it wasn't on her anymore. It was on a 14-year-old girl holding a future none of them had expected. I stepped forward. "We're leaving." My voice came out sharper than I meant it to, but I didn't take it back. I turned to Alara. "Get your bag from the car." She hesitated. "But what about—" "We're done here," I said. "Go get your things." She nodded and took off toward the driveway. Jenna stepped in front of me. "Oh, come on, Callie, don't be dramatic." I looked her in the eye. "You humiliated my daughter. You made her serve food to people who think they're better than her, and you laughed at her clothes. That wasn't family. That was cruelty, and I won't let her stand in it for one more minute." My mother, still sitting at the picnic table, spoke up without looking at me. "You're overreacting. She needs to learn how to take a little teasing." "She's 14, I snapped. "And what she needs is to be surrounded by people who believe in her, not people who keep trying to make her feel small." I looked at Amelia. "How soon does she need to leave?" "The dinner starts in 2 hours, she said. "We have a room prepared for her tonight. She can call you from the hotel once she's settled." Alara returned with her backpack slung over one shoulder. Her bracelet glinted in the sun as she clutched the strap. She stood beside me, still not saying much, but her eyes were different now. Brighter. Fierce. "Are you sure?" I asked her softly. She nodded. "Yes, I want to go." I hugged her tightly. "Then go. I'll be right here when you come back." Amelia gave me a warm, reassuring look. "We'll take good care of her." I stepped back and watched them walk toward the SUV. The driver opened the back door. Alara paused before getting in and looked back at the yard. Her gaze swept across the stunned faces of people who had never really seen her. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She simply got in and shut the door. The engine started. The SUV pulled away. I turned to face my family. "You didn't break her. You tried, but you failed." Jenna rolled her eyes. "You're acting like she won the lottery." "No," I said. "She won something better. Freedom." I didn't wait for a reply. I walked to my car, climbed in, and drove away without saying goodbye. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later with a photo from Amelia. Alara was standing in front of a hotel ballroom entrance, dressed in the same yellow sundress Jenna had mocked, only now it looked completely different on her. She stood tall, shoulders back, head held high. Her smile lit up her entire face. I stared at that photo for a long time. I thought about how close I had come to keeping her in that backyard just to avoid conflict. I'd almost stayed silent for the sake of politeness, but not anymore. I had made my decision. I would never sit quietly while someone tried to crush her spirit again, not even if they were family. That night, after I got home and shut the front door behind me, the house felt quieter than usual. Not empty, just different. For the first time in a long time, it wasn't weighed down by tension. I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for the next comment or carry the guilt that always came after seeing my family. The silence felt peaceful. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, waiting to hear from Alara. Part of me still couldn't believe it. She had left that backyard like someone stepping out of a cage. I had watched her drive off towards something real, something that belonged to her and no one else. When my phone lit up, I answered before the first ring ended. "Hi, Mom," she said. Her voice was soft but different, more certain. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah, more than okay. We had dinner with the other students. They're from all over. One girl's from New York, another from Oregon. We each got a journal with our names on it. And guess what? They said I get to pick my mentor tomorrow, like a real designer." I smiled. "You sound like you've been waiting for this your whole life." She hesitated. "I think I have." We talked for a few more minutes. Then she said she had to go meet the program director. I told her I was proud of her, that I loved her, and she said it back. After we hung up, I just sat there holding the phone, trying to absorb what had happened. I didn't know then how much would change in the days ahead. By the next morning, Jenna had already started spinning a new version of the story. She posted a photo of the barbecue on Facebook with a caption about family first and supporting young talent. She never mentioned the comments she made or the way she tried to embarrass Alara. She made it seem like she had always been proud of her niece. My mother followed up with her own post, congratulating Alara as if she had been cheering her on from the start. A few of the cousins commented with surprise, asking why they hadn't heard about Alara's designs before. I didn't respond to any of it. I didn't feel the need. The truth had already spoken for itself. Alara stayed in the program for 6 weeks. Every day she sent me photos of sketches, mood boards, swatches of fabric pinned to corkboards, even selfies with her mentors. In one picture, she stood beside a woman who had designed gowns for celebrities. Alara's smile was the same as the one she wore as a little girl drawing dresses in her notebook, but now there was a fire behind it. Confidence, ownership. Near the end of the program, there was a showcase. Each student presented a piece they had designed from start to finish. I drove to the city where the showcase was being held, sitting in the front row with my hands clasped tight in my lap. The lights dimmed, music played, and then she walked out. She wasn't modeling the dress, but the model was wearing something unmistakably hers. The soft lines, the layered textures, the careful detailing that reflected her quiet strength. The audience applauded. Judges nodded. One woman wiped a tear. Afterward, Alara found me backstage and threw her arms around me. She was shaking from nerves and joy. "I can't believe I did that," she whispered into my shoulder. "You didn't just do it," I said. "You soared." Later that night, as we drove home, she turned to me and asked, "Do you think they'll ever understand?" She didn't have to say who they were. I thought about it for a moment. Maybe. Or maybe it doesn't matter anymore. She nodded, staring out the window as lights passed by. "I don't think I need them to. Not really." That was the moment I knew something bigger than just a scholarship had happened. My daughter had stepped out of the shadow of people who couldn't see her, and she hadn't looked back. This wasn't just about fashion or art. It was about freedom. It was about a girl who had been treated like she should be grateful just to be included, finally being given the chance to stand on her own, not because someone allowed her to, but because she earned it, and she made them watch. It's been 3 months since that barbecue. 3 months since my daughter stood up in front of a crowd and showed them who she really was. And 3 months since I made a choice I should have made years ago. We don't talk to most of my family anymore. Jenna hasn't called. My mother sent a short message about hoping we can move past the drama, but she never apologized. She never asked how Alara was doing. She just wanted everything to go back to how it was. Quiet, controlled, comfortable for them. But I'm not interested in making them comfortable anymore. Alara is thriving. Her room is covered in sketches, color palettes, and fabric samples. She's applied for an advanced arts program at her school and was accepted without hesitation. Her counselor told me she walks with her head up now. She speaks in class. She volunteers to lead projects. She's not the same girl who hesitated to raise her hand or who used to shrink into herself when people talked over her. She's growing into someone who knows her worth. And it's because she finally saw it reflected back at her by people who celebrated her instead of diminishing her. Last week, we sat on the floor of her bedroom going through the scrapbook she made from her summer program. Tucked between photos and ticket stubs was a small note from Amelia Blackwell, written in neat script: "Stay bold, stay kind, and never wait for permission to shine." Alara read it again, then looked up at me. "I used to think I didn't belong anywhere," she said, "but now I think maybe I was just in the wrong rooms." I couldn't respond at first. My chest tightened with a kind of pride that made it hard to speak. I reached out and touched her hand. "You were never the problem," I said. "They just refused to see who you really were." For a long time, I blamed myself for not protecting her sooner. I told myself I had to keep the peace. I didn't want to isolate her. I wanted her to feel like she had a family. But what I've learned is that showing up doesn't mean you're accepted. And being related doesn't mean someone loves you the way you deserve to be loved. What matters is who stands beside you when it counts, who lifts you up, who celebrates your joy without making you feel like you owe them something in return. Sometimes, the most radical act of love you can give your child is walking away from the people who make them feel unworthy. That day at the barbecue, they tried to remind Alara of her place. They made her serve plates and take orders because they still saw her as small. They saw me as the single mother who should be grateful for a seat at the table. But Alara didn't need their table. She built her own. And when that black SUV pulled up and a stranger saw her value before her own family did, everything shifted. She walked away from that backyard with her chin high and her future in her hands. And every single person who tried to make her feel like less had to sit there and watch. She didn't yell. She didn't argue. She didn't beg them to treat her better. She just left. That's what strength looks like. Sometimes justice doesn't come in the form of a dramatic confrontation. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a girl in a yellow sundress stepping into a car with someone who believes in her. Sometimes it's the moment a mother decides her child's joy matters more than anyone's opinion. We haven't looked back, and we're not going to. My daughter was never just someone they let come along. She was never an afterthought. She was never less. They tried to make her feel small, but she left that day as a queen. Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, if it reminded you of someone who's been underestimated or overlooked, take a moment to like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their worth is not defined by how others treat them. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to walk away from people who didn't see your value? Let's talk about it. This is a space where your story matters. And if you believe in real stories that uplift, challenge, and inspire, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There are more voices like Alara's out there, and we're just getting started. Your support helps make sure they're heard. See you in the next one.